Welcome to FOBtv, the future of business. I want to thank each of you for joining us today. I'm really excited to introduce our guest today. Our guest is Marek Kowalkiewicz, and he's a professor in digital economy at Queensland University of Technology. He's a writer, TEDx speaker, founding director of the Center for the Digital Economy, and much, much more. Thanks for joining us, Marek.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Absolutely. You know, for those of you who watch these series, we mostly focus on kind of digital transformation and emerging technologies and strategies around business. Today, we're going to focus a little bit, a related area, but just a little bit outside of the typical, which is transformation within higher education. And to me, I have many friends right now that are returning to the university, and it's a whole different world. The experience is, nobody's ever went through this kind of freshman year or sophomore year or hybrid education. And there's a lot that goes into running a university. And there's a history behind the technology involved in that as well. And we're here to talk with Marek, who's an expert in this field. So Marek, let's just get started. So as a professor, how's the pandemic impacted your routine?
Oh, hugely, Kevin. Absolutely hugely. Now, for a bit of background, I'm based in Australia, and I work for a University of Technology, but for a business school within that university. As a professor, I specifically work in the executive education space. So I don't spend a lot of time with undergraduate or postgraduate students, but I do spend a lot of time with those who come back to the university to improve their education levels, to learn new things while they're going through their professional career. What has changed dramatically? Well, obviously, the fact that for a few months we weren't able to bring anyone back on campus. It's changed in Queensland. We're lucky enough that the situation is not as severe as in other parts of the world. So we have people coming back to campus, and it's actually quite safe when you look at the numbers. Fingers crossed. Now, what has changed really is the fact that we had to reimagine the way we connect with students, not just how we teach, but really the whole fabric of education. Now, when you think about it, executive education students, they don't just come back to university to learn. Yes, that's probably one of the reasons they reach out to us. But there are others. There's the fact that they want to build new networks. They want to engage with people, with their peers that they haven't met otherwise. They also want to work with professors more as mentors or people who they can just bounce ideas off. And so keeping this in mind, we had to come up with models that would not just let them learn online and so on. That's a relatively well understood space by now. But also we had to come up with models where we could get them to socialize and where we could get them to exchange ideas with their peers and their professors. So that's been the massive shift. And we all had to learn to operate in this new world.
So Marek, talk to us about what some of those mechanisms are for encouraging that kind of networking.
One of the interesting challenges that we have had at QUT Business School, we have a program called Digital MBA. The Digital MBA is basically an MBA that is focusing on digital transformation, and it brings people from all around the world really to learn those new skills. What we managed to do was, in a very controlled environment, bring some of the students from the cohort on site, on campus, and at the same time, we were able to bring others through means like Zoom and teleconferencing. I have to tell you, it's been extremely hard at the very beginning to make sure that connectedness was there. There's really a wall, a border between the physical world and the Zoom world when you want to socialize. When we started to use the technology to the extreme, looking into things like breakout rooms and using additional tools like Miro or virtual whiteboarding tools, we came up with a solution which really kept the engagement high on both ends. it's absolutely exhausting and draining for the teachers, the leaders, but it's really bringing everyone together. It's just one example of, of bringing everyone together in this new reality.
Before we started recording, you had shared some of kind of the innovations you were testing personally with your students, those 90-second videos and things. Why don't you share that with the audience?
I think that's an interesting program that we developed in the executive education space. I had a large customer from across with locations all around Australia for whom we were preparing a training that was teaching the participants some particular skills around digital innovation. With COVID-19, we were not able to bring them into one location and do the training. So we developed a model following a habit loop where we would every day at 7 a.m. send every participant a text message. In that text message, there was a link to a 90-second video. Those videos were maybe between 80 and 100 seconds, all recorded in this room with a green screen and a basic camera. And those videos, 21 of those, were sharing particular aspects of the course. And, to follow the habit loop, there was a trigger, which was the text message. There was an action, which was the watching of the video. And there was a reward, which was, the students got an opportunity to submit some responses to that video and get immediate feedback based on that. They also got some daily emails with feedback following this. It was really, really interesting because we had two situations where the text message provider was about 10-15 minutes late in sending out those text messages. People were mailing me, people were calling me and saying, where's my text message? I want to see my video, right? So we clearly developed a habit there. And that work now is leading to a development of a new mode of delivery at the university, where having tested, think about it as a minimum viable product, having tested it with one cohort, now we're exploring this as an opportunity for an ongoing subscription model. So imagine going to your local university or any other university and saying, you know what, I want to be inspired every day when I'm having my morning coffee, right? Can I pay $10 a month for it, right? At a specific scale, it starts to make financial sense for the university. So that's a completely new mindset. We're shifting from charging students, thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars for education to potentially tens of dollars for that education.
Oh my. So let's talk about the students there, Marek. So you're talking to mostly kind of returning students at the executive level for advanced degrees in training, but you must also be exposed to your colleagues and their conversations about students in general and how the world is different for them. What are you hearing out there?
I do speak to a lot of undergraduate, postgraduate students at the university. They have very, very strong social networks as well, and we can see what they talk about on sites like Facebook and so on. And you can clearly see that it's been a huge challenge for students being disconnected from others socially. So that's been a huge struggle. And look, I would not underestimate the impact on mental health, on the fact that you stay there as a student at home, you don't get to talk to others. The only way of connecting with fellow students is either via Facebook groups or perhaps emails. And you still get to work with those very traditional tools, right? Most of universities around the world, when they use online education, they use tools like Blackboard, which is, I think that's the 20th century invention, right? That tool, that platform, and it sometimes feels like this. So a lot of students have been impacted by this lockdown, effectively, in a very strong way. So now that that a lot of students are back to campus, you can really see, that those energy levels going up. The university is allowing those who are not keen on being back on campus to connect to any of the lectures online or virtually. So that's absolutely fine for those who are not comfortable doing so. For those who want to get back on campus at the moment, it's possible.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. My wife had an experience yesterday where she was visiting friends, and their kids are still not returning to school yet. They're just starting to in the upcoming weeks here. But one of their youngest, their 7-year-old, was playing a game through the school system with their classmates. So
Yeah.
they were on the floor with the laptop, laughing, playing games with their classroom. Then it was kind of an educational game where they had teams and all that. And I just went, yes, that's one way to, continue and extend that social connection.
There are Zoom parties. There are, I've attended at least a few of them where you basically show up with your, the poison of your choice, your own alcohol, and just sit in front of a camera and and just enjoy time with others. It's not as good as being in person with others. Definitely helps, and so I'm sure a lot of students use this as well. I have school-age kids. I hope they don't do any drinking games over Zoom, but they definitely use that as well. That was a new experience for the teachers.
Man, I commend them. I've looked over the shoulders of a whole family of kids and watched the interactions that the teachers did, and they changed a lot. The teachers had a lot of confusion. They had a big learning curve when they started. Just managing all the different sounds coming from all the different homes and pets and children and mothers and fathers and the whole works. But it completely changed. And now, man, the teachers, I'm so impressed.
Absolutely, and that's a very good point. So a few months ago, when I started to basically work mostly from my home office for the university, I thought, where could I learn the skills of online delivery? And I might be a slightly exceptional university professor because I spent half of my professional life working in industry for a global organization, working all around the world. So working from home was actually nothing new for me, and I'm quite comfortable in this space. But I still ask myself, how can I up this game? And so what I did, and I would still recommend it to everyone, is I went to Twitch, the website for gamers who stream their gaming experience. And I started looking at the tools that the gamers use. What microphones do they use? What lighting setups do they use? What cameras? And so on. And you know what? If I showed you my office right now, it's basically like a Twitch streamer's studio, right? I learned a lot from those gamers, and I'm just applying the same technology for educational content now.
And so, Marek, you're telling your wife that it's for your real job, right?
Of course, and I'm getting my university pay for it.
That's so fun. So, a lot of us out there, we haven't spent a lot of time thinking about the digital transformation that's impacted higher education over the last 10 years. Talk to us about that journey. What have you seen? How has the world changed for higher education?
The biggest thing that we're seeing at the moment is a massive acceleration of things that often were in train. It's just, like you said, universities are a very traditional type of institutions. And what comes with this is, you might not like the word, but this is the word, the inertia, right? There are ways of doing things that have worked for hundreds of years, and so a lot of people are asking, why should we be changing them? And so that has been a bit of a challenge for any of the digital transformation efforts. And some of the things that my university is doing right now were on a roadmap for 2025 or so, right? So there was a plan, and there was a slow delivery of software and tools to get to that stage. Suddenly COVID hit, and the university had a choice, right? Either completely lose the ability to deliver content and teach students, or massively accelerate the roadmaps. And what helped was that everyone across the board, from the vice chancellor, the top person at the university, all the way to the IT person, the tactics of it, they all understood that this is really a kind of a fly or die scenario and situation. So everyone was committed, and suddenly it was possible. And so we see a lot of new technologies, new implementations happening at the university. The nice thing about everything that's happening right now is that everyone understands that this is high pace, that this is, a lot of work happening in a short amount of time. So there's a huge risk of mistakes, but people are much more forgiving for those mistakes, right? So suddenly there's an opportunity to experiment with new technology. That's beautiful. I absolutely love it.
I'm thinking as you're talking here, Marek, and I'm thinking, would this have been possible without cloud computing? If this was all client server, VPN, all that kind of traditional environment, would this have been possible? And I really don't think so. What's your take on that?
No, you're absolutely right. Look, the way I see, you call it cloud computing. What I'm thinking is kind of on-premise versus on-demand type of solutions, and that those on-demand solutions are basically enabled by cloud computing. Imagine we didn't have this cloud world, and suddenly every university would have to do what they used to do in, say, 1980s, 1990s, which is get their IT teams and develop a solution, right? And now imagine every university now trying to develop a video conferencing solution for their students, right? That would be an absolute, mess and disaster. But what we're seeing at the moment is we have de facto standards for delivery of video content, and universities are basically just deciding to jump on board, right, and join that. And I think this is absolutely beautiful. Let's ensure that universities are doing what they're good at, which is research and teaching, education, and not software development, for instance. So yes, in short, absolutely. Without technologies like cloud, like on-demand computing, like software as a service, that would not have been possible.
Dr. Kowalkiewicz, thank you so much for sharing your insight and your experiences and your Twitch studio and all that's happening in the world of higher education. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Kevin.